It was a tremendous Saturday. That's all I got to say. It was a tremendous Saturday, a wild Saturday. Upsets to the nines. We had Colorado go down to Kansas. We had Texas A&M lose to Auburn. We had Oklahoma lose to Alabama. We had Ole Miss in Florida. That game we're going to talk about here in a little bit. We had upsets to the nines. It was a wild week before the last week of the regular season here in college football, and we are so close to conference championship frenzy here on Pigskin Frenzy. And as we get ready and gear up for this Saturday's Showdown Saturday, I cannot wait for these mounts of games. We got a lot of games to cover here. 4 games for this week. We're going to recap Week 13, get ready for Showdown Saturday, Week 14 in college football, the last weekend of the regular season as we enter the holidays. And we also have to talk about our latest round of Frenzy rankings. So that's a major shakeup after what happened this past weekend. We're also going to discuss some recruiting news with the number 1 recruit in 2025 going to Michigan. Bryce Underwood going to Michigan. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. With that being said, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on Podbean, listening on Apple, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, and Facebook, just type in Pigskin Frenzy. Follow, like the pages there. You're going to get episode updates. You're going to get news and highlights from across college and NFL football. You're going to get new trivia questions on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football question, as well as all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Not Facebook, by the way, just X and Instagram. I keep saying that. Got to learn how to not say that, just out of habit. So, website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. All things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. We got store coming soon, affiliations page coming soon. We also have our platforms page, which you can click on which one's your favorite listening style of the show. There's also contact info, name, email, and question. I'll answer it on air and off there if need be. More coming on the website soon for Pigskin Frenzy. College football day today. I am super, super duper excited to cover this weekend slate of games. We're here for Showdown Saturday. I'm pumped. Happy early holidays here for Pigskin Frenzy. And it is Showdown Saturday 2, as we're titling this episode here for this season. So let's get right down to it, right? Let's just get down to it. We got a lot to talk about. Let's recap Week 13, our slate of games here. I was 1-3 in my picks. That's how crazy this past weekend was. 1-3. I only got 1 game right. I was all in, and I came away with 1 slice of the pie, and a majority of it was eaten by the rest of everybody else. So 1 slice is all I got this past Saturday, and quite frankly, when you're going all in like that, it kind of happens that way, I guess. So let's talk about the game that I got right first. And it had a controversial ending to it. Just a wild Saturday, by the way. And if I haven't mentioned that enough already here on Pigskin, so let's talk about the game that I got right, then we'll go over the games that I got wrong. We'll do some honorable mention games, and one in particular that was pretty important that I didn't see coming. We'll do an honorable mention game that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but after this recap. But let's talk about before we get to the other games. Let's talk about the one I got right, and that was BYU and Arizona State. I picked Arizona State to win that ball game. I thought that Arizona State was going to be the better team. I thought that BYU coming off of a loss to Kansas was not really in a good spot, and they weren't. I was right. Arizona State wins this ball game. Final score of this game, 28-23. Arizona State defeats BYU in Tempe at home. Electric atmosphere. They go to 9-2. BYU goes to 9-2 as well. And we're at an impasse, a 4-way tie for first between Colorado, BYU, Iowa State, and Arizona State. Here in the Big 12. 2 spots, 4 teams. Who's going to get in coming up this week and clinching those spots coming up this week for the Big 12 championship game? Arizona State is looking like a prime team, man. They are dangerous, and they proved that this past Saturday once again. Here are just some of the highlights from this game. One of them being Cam Scadavoo here at the running back position is an absolute monster. 28 carries, 147 yards, and 3 touchdowns in this game. He had 147 yards and 3 touchdowns, 5.2 yards per play. He was the probably the main positive circle moment for this Sun Devil team. 247 yards, a touchdown, 16 for 25 with Sam Leavitt from Arizona State. There's also Brown, 5 carries, 10 yards. There's also Jordan Tyson. Jordan Tyson had 9 receptions, 125 yards. Xavier Guillory, my bad. I was going to clear my throat. Xavier Guillory, 61-yard touchdown play from him. The defense was insane. They had turnovers and sacks galore on Jake Retzlaff from BYU. Positive circle moment for this team, and it was Cam Scatterboo in the ground game. They could not stop Cam Scatterboo. So that was a positive circle moment for this team. Another positive circle moment was they were winning on third down. 7 for 13. Third down efficiency was good. If you want to look at the rushing yards, 154 rushing yards compared to their 94 rushing yards. Passing, they had better passing yards than them, but that's all right. Total yards, 401 yards compared to their 391 yards. So not many. They were kind of even on the stat line here. But if you want to look at some negative circle moments, I would say the 1 interception and then those 9 penalties. 9 penalties for 76 yards, a no-go for this Sun Devils team. They need to clean that up if they want to win the Big 12 and if they want to get into the college football playoff. But the thing about Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham, man, is they're motivated. They are pumped. They are a very dangerous football team on both sides of the ball when they can. Now, here's another negative circle moment that I saw from this team is they kind of let their foot off the gas a little bit. They were up. It was like 21-0, 21-3 by halftime. They were up, man. They were on them like white on rice. But they let their foot off the gas, and they got a 5-point win, which there's nothing wrong with that. Proud win for Arizona State. They needed this win. But here's the problem is if you let your foot off the gas, especially in a Big 12 championship game or in the playoff game, against some of the best team in the field in 12 teams, it's over, right? You're going to lose, and you can't do that. You got to keep your foot off the gas at all times, compete to the max, highest level for 4 quarters for 60 straight minutes, and you can't let your foot off the gas. You can't slow down. And I think that was the problem with Arizona State. They slowed down. They were kind of just, they kind of slowed down, and that was the biggest thing there for this Sun Devils team. Other than that, they played really, really well. Cam Scatterboo is a bowling ball. They cannot stop the run against him. They were having some trouble against him, and I think this team's dangerous. And you're going to find out what I mean by that in my latest set of Frenzy rankings, because they are a dangerous team. It's a 4-way tie for the Big 12, ladies and gentlemen. It really is, and there's only going to be 2 teams that are going to get in. Arizona State, I really like their chances. They went out and they have some stuff happen to them. I think Arizona State has a strong shot at getting in. I like their chances highly. I think they're going to fill one of those spots, and I think if they win out, they're going to be in the playoff, potentially a first-round bye in the playoffs. I think Kenny Dillingham's got this team right on track. His second season at Arizona State and first season in the Big 12. So I kind of like what this team's going at right now. I really am high on Arizona State. I've said this for the past few weeks. Ever since they beat Utah, do not sleep on this team. And now we're here. Showdown Saturday, the last weekend of the regular season, a week before conference championships, and we're here. Arizona State in the thick of things, a dangerous team. Do not count them out. Let's see where they have them tonight in the rankings. I'll tell you where I have my Frenzy rankings coming up here in just a little bit. Arizona State Saturday, they have a showdown with Arizona, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central in Arizona, in Tucson. Arizona State at Arizona, a huge rivalry game coming up this Saturday at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central kickoff for Arizona State. Watch out, man. They win, they're probably in. So watch out for Arizona State, man. They're a strong football team, man. 28-23 was the final score. This is a strong team and dangerous team. Just watch out for Dillingham's squad because they are on the rise. That's all I got to say, man. I'm going to warn you. I've kept warning you. Arizona State, a solid football team. Let's talk about BYU really quick and what went wrong there. Then we will move on to the other 3 football games and 4 games because we got an upset honorable mention here. It was a wild weekend. BYU, positive circle moment for BYU. They hung in there until the end. Look, Marion on the ground had 30 yards, 5 carries, 2 touchdowns. Martin had 42 yards, 9 carries. Ratzlaff had he was 22 for 38, 297 yards, touchdown, and 2 interceptions, so not the best in the world. Receiving, Lassiter had 103 yards, 5 receptions. Phillips had 37 yards, a touchdown, and 2 receptions. They did their best on defense. They had a pick. They had a lot of tackles, man. Their defense was very stingy, and they played with a lot of heart in the second half. I think the game got away from them really early. And I think that was the problem with the Cougars here in this game. The crowd noise was not in their favor. They turned the ball over twice. They had good third down efficiency, but the moment got away from them. They were down big early in the first half, and I think it was an uphill battle to climb, but late in the game, Arizona State stuck around and they won, but they showed some fight in the second half, which I loved. But BYU has some flaws in there, and they have some flaws with one, starting off really slow. And I think starting off really slow was coming back to bite them in a huge way. They started off slow against Kansas, and now they started off slow in this game. They've lost both. Now here we are. They're a 2-loss team now. Here are the positive circle moments for this team. 297 yards passing compared to their 247. I mean, that's some pretty good passing. They were 1 through the air pretty much. They were 7 for 10 on third down. They really make the most of their third down conversions and efficiency. If you want to talk about, you want to talk about some positives. 6.4 yards per play. Normally that will win a game, but Arizona State was very hot starting out, and they were up early big. So I think that's where it kind of got away from them there. Also, the negative circle moments, two turnovers, and the time of possession was off. They had 35 minutes. BYU had 24 minutes and 55 seconds. So they got beaten time of possession pretty well. Arizona State did really well in the later part of the game to hold on to the ball. And I mean, we can talk about the controversy here in a little bit, but at the end of this game, but BYU just kind of fell off a little bit. They're still in the thick of things. They could still very well make the playoffs if they win out and face whoever in the Big 12 championship, and they win the Big 12 title. They could go a bye, or the 12th seed, or the highest rated seed in the playoff. The lowest ranked conference champion seed in the playoff, and go to the playoff and win. Who knows, right? But you never know. But BYU's just kind of falling off a little bit. I really wasn't high on BYU to begin with, and that's just me being honest. But they played good. They played hard. They made it to this point, but Arizona State was just a better team. The ending result of this game was funny. It was not really funny, but it was interesting. There was the fans started storming the field. The refs started reviewing it, but the way it was going, there was clock still left on the game. It was a second left in the game, and I was looking up, and I was like, wait. The game's not over. There's a clock. There's a 1 second left on the clock. And these fans are going crazy. They think they won the game. Huge, huge delay. It was like a 12 to 13 minute delay in the game. They were trying to get fans off the field to go back to their bleachers, and they rushed the field at the end. And it was 1 second left. They went all go on the route, Hail Mary. They caught the ball at the goal line, but they did not get in. The Arizona State defense made a stand, and then the fans rushed the field, and that was the game. Huge game and huge win for Arizona State. But that was an interesting thing there to begin with. Officiating is still not up to par. I keep saying it. We need to get full-time officials. I keep saying that every conference, every week. It gets worse, and we need to slow it down and get better at officiating. And the game, to me, was over in my point, but I don't know. We'll just see about that. Final score of this game was 28-23. BYU loses to Arizona State. BYU has to win this one coming up this week. They play Houston at 10:15 Eastern, 9:15 Central. Houston at BYU. They have to win a home game against Houston. If Houston upsets them, BYU is out of it. That takes them out of it, and they lose, and they're out of Big 12 title game and playoff contention as we speak. So Arizona State gets the win. We'll see if they can find a way to beat Arizona, and see if BYU can find a way to beat Houston and stay in the hunt and potentially clinch a spot in the Big 12 championship game next weekend. That was the game I got right. Let's talk about the other 3 games that I got wrong, and let's kick it off with Ole Miss in Florida, because that game was interesting to say the least, right? Final score of this game was 24-17. Florida upsets and defeats Ole Miss. Florida upsets and defeats Ole Miss 24-17. What a game this was. And how about Billy Napier coming out here saving his job? Complete madness in this game was this game. Florida 24, Ole Miss 17. Let's look at what Florida did right. And they were physical in this ball game, by the way. They were very, very physical. Let's talk about this game. Let's talk about this game as I look up the stats here really quick and pull them up and pull up the notes here. Florida man has really saved save Billy Napier's job in this one. Florida State's defense, man. And let me want to tell you something. Florida State's defense has been pretty stingy these past 2 weeks. First, they knocked off LSU, and they end their hopes. Now they go to Ole Miss comes, and the game was all for Ole Miss winning this game and bouncing, winning this game after their bye, and then all of a sudden they go to Gainesville and they get knocked off. It was shocking. They were all over Jackson Dart. They did not protect Jackson Dart very well. The defensive line looked stingy. They looked fast. They looked physical, and they beat them in the line of scrimmage. That was a positive circle moment for this Florida Gator team. Billy Napier outcoached Lane Kiffin. This is a stamp of approval right here for Billy Napier that, hey, Jeremy Strickland was right. The AD for Florida was right. Scott Strickland was right, the AD for Florida, on getting him, right, to go to save his job, right? So, looking at my notes here, pause on that, but if you look at the game itself, that was a big positive circle moment. They were physical. They were stingy up front on the defensive line and on the offensive line. DJ Lagway made some good plays. DJ Lagway, freshman, is going to be a phenomenal quarterback for this team. He was 10 for 17, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. He only had 1 interception. He threw the ball really, really well. Montrell Johnson looked really, really good on the ground. 18 carries, 107 yards, a touchdown, and 5.9 yards per play on average. Jalen Baugh, 13 carries, 46 yards. Jackson had 21 yards and 8 carries. Elijah Badger had 87 yards, a touchdown, and 5 receptions. Jalen Baugh also had a 25-yard touchdown reception. The defense had multiple picks as well. They looked good getting to Jackson Dart. They were really, really on him in this one. Positive circle moments for this team. 7 for 15 on third down. They really competed on third down a lot. And if you want to look at the stat line, the only thing that they outgained Ole Miss in was rushing. 164 yards compared to their 141 yards rushing total. That was really it. Ole Miss won statistically in every category, passing 323 compared to their 180, 464 total yards compared to their 344. They outgained them in a lot, but that doesn't tell the story now, does it? The game itself tells the story. Ole Miss looked really, really stagnant out there on both sides of the ball. Florida looked physical. They looked like they were ready to play, and they looked like they wanted to go bowl eligible, and they wanted to fight for Billy Napier in this game. Nothing to lose. Everything's on the table, nothing to lose, and that's what Florida did in this ball game. They only threw 1 pick. That was the negative circle moment. I think the negative circle moment will be penalties, five penalties for 44 yards, but that's about it, man. And 7 punts, really, but that's about it. They punted 7 times compared to their 4 punts, and they still won the game. Shocking, but and that's pretty much the negative blemishes. Other than that, Florida looked good. They made plays when they needed to. They made deep plays. They were motivated, and they were mentally prepared to go out and leave it all on the line for Billy Napier in this ball game. He really saved his job out of this tough stretch. And no one knew in this game, and not in the stretch of games, really, that he was going to win all of this. No one knew. Before the season started, I didn't really have hope in Florida and Billy Napier. But there was some hope in these stretch of games. They did lose to Georgia and Texas, but they're going to win 3 out of the 2 out of their tough skid, right? 3 out of the 2, because I think they're going to beat Florida. They're going to beat Florida State in Doak Campbell Saturday night. So They lose. They win 3 out of 2. Georgia and Texas is the only 2 they've lost, and those teams are playing in the SEC championship. Other than that, they beat Ole Miss, they beat LSU, and they're going to beat Florida State most likely Saturday night. Florida is a strong team, is a strong team late, and they peaked at the right time to get bowl eligible and to save Napier's job. This team can win 8 wins. Did you think about that? They can win 8 wins. They can win Florida State and go on to win their bowl game. They can be an 8-5 team when it's all said and done, and no one knew that Florida was going to be an 8-5 team. Shocking, I know, but it happens to be the case. They look good overall. They just were better than Ole Miss in this game. Final score was 24-17. Florida defeats Ole Miss. That was really all my recap on Florida, man. They just look good. They're going to be they're bowl eligible. They play Florida State Saturday night. It's going to look a little different. Florida was kind of on the ropes last year, and Florida State was fighting for a playoff spot when they got screwed out of a playoff spot. Now it's Florida being bowl eligible, and Florida State, they've only had 1 win. They've only had 2 wins on the year. So it's tough. It's a whole trajectory change. Florida has really, really kind of saved their season and saved Billy Napier's job in this one. Let's talk about Ole Miss. They get ready for Florida State this Saturday night. Let's talk about Ole Miss, because this is shocking. I did not expect Ole Miss to lose this ball game. I had them winning, and they did not look good. They were not ready to play this game Saturday early or late morning, early afternoon, noon Eastern. They were not ready to play this ball game at all. I was shocked, honestly. I mean, 24-17, man. Let's look at some of the positive circle moments for Ole Miss. Dart was 323 yards, 2 touchdowns, 24 for 41. Not the most efficient. He had 71 yards on the ground, 14 carries. The running game was not all there, obviously. He had Matt Davis had 27 yards, 11 carries. Thomas had 20 yards, three carries. Caden Lee, a touchdown, 94 yards, 6 receptions. Jordan Watkins, 70 yards, 8 receptions. Wright had 57 yards, 4 receptions. Trey Harris had 1 43-yard touchdown reception. That's about it. Wells had a 25-yard reception. Prescorn had 22 yards, 2 receptions. They did get to Lagway. They did do an interception. Walter Nolan had 8 total tackles and a sack. He looked good. Perkins looked good. Moore looked good. And Paul looked good. They all had good tackles, and the defense played physical in the end, but the defense was holding up. The defense held up in a lot of ways. They made them punt 7 times, so that was a positive circle moment for this Ole Miss defense. But the offense was costing them game. It was costing them the whole game. Jackson Dart was not efficient. He was off-kiltered with his receivers. The running game was hardly there at first. They had 141 rushing yards on the ground. They had 6 yards per play. Those were mainly the positive circle moments, and the defense was the positive circle moments as they kept them in this game. If the defense wasn't keeping them in this game, it probably would have been a blowout in Florida's favor. The offense for Ole Miss was off track in a lot of ways. Those are the positive circle moments. The negative circle moments was the offense and the chemistry between the receivers and Jackson Dart in this game. 3 for 14 was their third down efficiency. Not very good third down efficiency in this ball game. 4 penalties, 45 yards. They turned the ball over 3 times, a fumble and 2 interceptions. Jackson Dart, 2 late interceptions in this ball game. Not the best when you're trying to fight for a playoff spot. And in this ball game, Ole Miss's playoff hopes go like a nuclear bomb, right? Just like an atomic bomb, just up in flames. And it really, really did cost them in a lot of ways. Now, Ole Miss can probably find a way to get back in it, maybe, but I don't know. I think this helps Tennessee just a little bit more if Tennessee wins out. I think Tennessee's going to have to lose, in order for Ole Miss to try to jump ahead of Tennessee and win. They had the Egg Bowl Friday afternoon, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central on ABC on Black Friday. Friday afternoon, they have the Egg Bowl so they can find a way to bounce back and win out and finish out strong and win a tough home game against Mississippi State. But in one of the greatest rivalries there. So it's honestly, when you think about it, just when you think, right? When you think about everything and evaluate everything, this really did hurt their chances, but there's still a glimmer of hope. They got to rely on some help, which you don't want to do, but you're going to have to rely on some help. There's still a glimmer of hope. But for Ole Miss right now, it's looking like a Citrus Bowl or a Music City Bowl or one of those bowl games, or a ReliaQuest Bowl is in the cards for this football team. I don't really want – I'm just speaking the truth. I'm not speaking negative. I'm just being honest about this team. They hurt themselves in the playoff hunt. It happens, but you just got to be truthful about this stuff, right? You got to be truthful. Final score, 24-17. Florida defeated Ole Miss in a huge upset game. Huge game here, honestly. Ole Miss on the ropes. Their playoff hopes could be done. Let's see. They got to rely on the help, but it's looking less and less likely they're going to make the playoffs now. Florida, huge win on their repertoire. They're going to get ready for Florida State. Ole Miss is going to get ready for an Egg Bowl showdown Friday afternoon against Mississippi State, trying to rely on the help of others to sneak in to the playoffs in one of those lower at-large spots, or in the 11th or 10th spot or 10th seed in the playoffs. So that was Florida Ole Miss. Let's talk about one big game. Let's talk about the other two games that I got wrong. Let's talk about Army and Notre Dame, because I'm going to go quickly with this one. My family called this one a feel-good pick because they were like, what are you thinking? You're going to really pick Notre Dame. You're going to pick Army against Notre Dame. I did. I thought Army had a shot because of their running game. I thought they're a lot better to me than Navy at turning the ball over less. But the talent differential in this game, and it proved it by that second touchdown that Notre Dame scored with that hurdle, was just unbelievable, right? It was just, after that hurdle, I knew Notre Dame was probably going to have this one in the bag, and I was dead wrong about this game. Final score of this game wasn't even close. Notre Dame 49, Army 14. Notre Dame destroyed Army, and it wasn't even close. Army loses their first game on the year. Notre Dame goes to 10-1. Let's talk about Notre Dame and how they look like a team that's going to make the playoff. If they beat USC, they have clinched on a spot and a berth in the college football playoff. Automatically, they're in. And let me go on and tell you something about Notre Dame. Despite their schedule, they have played consistently good, just like Oregon. And you're going to think, who have they played? I know. They play USC this coming up Saturday night. But who have they played? I understand that. Notre Dame, Saturday afternoon, at USC, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central, has USC in the afternoon. So I understand Saturday afternoon, you're going to think they play them, but is that a credible win? Yeah, but look, who they play, but they've been consistently good throughout their schedule, just like Oregon. 10-1. Notre Dame, positive circle moments all around. Marcus Freeman's a great coach. He had this team ready to play. They physically dominated on both sides of the football. Army only scored two touchdowns. One in the second quarter, one in the fourth. They only scored 2 touchdowns. If you want to look at the scorecard, 14 points, two touchdowns in the first quarter, 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, and 1 touchdown in the fourth. For Notre Dame, that was Notre Dame's scorecard on the first through the fourth. 2 touchdowns in the first 3 quarters, and in the last quarter, touchdown. They dominated Army. Bar none. It was not even close. This is why I'm going to go quick on this recap, because it wasn't close. Army, Notre Dame, positive circle moment. Riley Leonard threw the ball well, surprisingly, and they're the 100th passing offense in college football. Go figure, right? 10 for 13, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. Very efficient day for Riley Leonard, and they relied on the run game with Jeremiah Love because he broke out. 130 yards, 7 carries, 2 touchdowns, and 18.6 yards per play. This man had 18.6 yards per play running the football. He is a solid running back. Jeremiah Love gets all the credit in this game. Big positive circle moments there. Anais Williams, 62 yards, 3 carries, a touchdown, 20.7 yards per play in this one on the ground. These backs were all over. I mean, they were all over the field. Jadarian Price, 10 carries, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns. They relied on the ground game. I don't even want to look at the rushing yards, but we're going to do it anyway here in a little bit. And Riley Leonard had 8 carries, 30 yards. Fison had 46 yards, 2 receptions, and a touchdown. He averaged 23 yards per play. Mitchell had 28-yard receptions for 28 yards per play, obviously. Collins, 37 yards, 4 receptions. Jeremiah Love had a 6-yard touchdown reception in this game. The defense was all over them. They had turnovers, sacks, you name it. They were all over this. Half a sack. They were all over this team. Osbury had 7 total tackles in this game. Schuler had 8 total tackles in this game. So they looked really, really good. Positive circle moment, obviously. The running game, rushing yards. 273 yards rushing compared to their Army's 207, 9.8 yards per play compared to their 3.5 yards per play. That is ridiculous in this game. Ridiculous in this football game. Come on, 9.8 yards per play compared to their 3.5. Come on, man. Just ridiculous. Their third down efficiency was low. Why? Because they were scoring so quickly. That's why it was so low. 3 out of 5 on third down efficiency. There's really not a negative circle moment in this ball game. There is no negative circle moment in this ball game for Notre Dame. They outshined them in every aspect. The only negative circle moment you can think of is 5 penalties for 45 yards. They got to clean that up. But other than that, Marcus Freeman had this team ready to play in Yankee Stadium, man. 20 minutes was all their time of possession compared to Army's 39 minutes. It's really just domination. That's all it was. Notre Dame just literally ended Army in this game. Right now, this hurts Army's playoff hopes, bar none. It really does. Now, if Boise State loses and and it depends on how they do it in the game for the conference championship against Tulane next Friday night. If they beat Tulane pretty bad and Boise State loses to UNLV, then Army gets in the college football playoff by a group of 5. So Army can still get in, but it's going to take some work, especially after this game. I think they really needed this win, honestly, and they could not get the job done. Notre Dame Saturday's got USC. I wholeheartedly expect them to be in the playoff after this one. I'm picking Notre Dame to beat USC and get into the college football playoff and in one of those at-large spots. Notre Dame consistently, along with Oregon, has been a threat to everybody they played. They have been really, really good ever since that Northern Illinois loss. They shook it off from week 2. That game was a distant memory. It's only looking good for Northern Illinois at this point. They shook it off. They're ready to go. They look ready and poised. Let's see if they do this against a team that they can, if they play against. If they play against Alabama or Georgia, whoever, in the playoff, Texas, whoever, and they do this, and they beat them, this team could go to the national championship. If they could do it against an Ohio State or a top caliber team in this fold, you're going to be surprised where I have Notre Dame in my latest round of frenzy rankings. 49-14. They got USC Saturday afternoon, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central kick. Big rivalry game between USC and Notre Dame. The last game of the regular season. This coming up Saturday afternoon for Notre Dame. They should be in the playoff if they win that game. Army, really quick before we move on. Tough break. Where are the positive circle moments? I'm trying to find them, honestly, before we go on to the last game, before we go on to the honorable mention game, and then the flip commitment, and then we're going to talk about the rankings and then the preview and predictions. So going quickly with this show here, but let's talk about Bryson Daly. 4 for 8, 26 yards passing on the ground, 39-yard carries, obviously 139 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Udo, 10 carries, 35 yards. Howard had four carries, 25 yards. The rushing was 207 yards. That was a caveat to this team. Army played physical in some areas, but not a lot. They couldn't get anything off going through the pass. 207 yards on the ground, 26 yards passing. They were very efficient on third down, 6 for 17. I mean, I wouldn't say very efficient, but they were sort of efficient. 6 for 17. Not too great, but not too bad either. You want to look at the penalties. They were pretty disciplined. 2 penalties for 26 yards. They only had 1 fumble. They had onto the ball a lot, but they couldn't capitalize on much. They really couldn't. They couldn't capitalize on much. They punted the ball 4 times. Notre Dame did not punt the ball at all. So I couldn't really find anything positive to say about this Army loss. And for Army, I mean, 39 minutes for 49 seconds. They had the ball for 39 minutes and could not capitalize on anything. That goes to show how good Notre Dame's defense is, and goes to show how the caliber of play between these two teams. Army played somebody. That's what this game showed. Total yards, 462 compared to Army's 233. They played somebody. Army and Bryson Daly played somebody. They couldn't stop Jeremiah Love on the ground. They gave up 273 yards. I mean, it was just a complete mismatch on both sides of the ball. They weren't as physical. Notre Dame dominated from opening kick to the final whistle on the field. Army hadn't played anybody yet. And that's okay. That's how it was in their conference. They haven't played anybody. They're a group of 5. They just hadn't played a power 4 independent team or a power 4 football team yet. That's fine. Army coming up has University of Texas San Antonio. They have UTSA at home, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central this Saturday. I fully expect Army, as they are first in the American Conference, to bounce back and win that ball game. I think they're going to win that ball game. I really do. I think Army's going to go 10-1, and they're going to win that ball game. It's just the caliber of play that they are playing. I was wrong about this game. I thought that Army was going to hang in there, but they didn't. Completely wrong. 100% wrong. Me, I look like the fool in this one. I shouldn't have picked them, and it proved. I picked Notre Dame to beat Navy, yes, but my heart was saying roll with Army. Roll with Army. Let's see what they do. And sometimes your heart with your feel good with the feel goodness of Army beating Notre Dame kind of clouds your judgment a little bit, and that pick just clouds my judgment. Army was not competitive. It wasn't close. It's just the caliber of opponent that they have faced. That's all you got to say about Army in this game, and that's okay. They're just not on the level of Notre Dame. Final score, 49-14. Notre Dame defeated Army in Yankee Stadium. Huge games coming up for them this weekend as Notre Dame gets ready to try to find a way to clinch a playoff spot, and Army tries to bounce back after that tough loss before their conference championship showdown against Tulane. They had to bounce back against UTSA Saturday early afternoon, late Saturday morning. Let's go with Ohio State and Indiana before we move on to the honorable mention upset game, and then we'll go with the commitment recruiting news really quick, just a piece of recruiting news before we do our frenzy playoff rankings. Ohio State and Indiana played. I'm pretty sure you guys knew that. I picked Indiana to win. Looked like another feel-good moment for me because I was dead wrong about this game. Not only was this game a win for Ohio State, but it wasn't close. It was, yes, sure, it was closer than a Notre Dame and Army, but this was a beating from ever since the start of the second half. It was a beating from the start of the second half. Final score was 38-15. Ohio State dominates Indiana. And in my heart, as the game kind of got closer and closer, I was thinking Ohio State's probably going to win this ball game. And I probably should have changed my picks. But you can't change your picks. You got to go with your gut. After you say it, it's out there. Podcast is out there. You say it on there. It's there. You got to pick. You got to stay with your picks. But Ohio State is a team that has not clinched a spot yet, but I think will. I think if they beat Michigan in the game Saturday morning inside the shoe, they clinch it and they play Oregon in the Big Ten championship game next Saturday afternoon. So, look, I mean, what do you got to say about positive circle moments? They were all over Curtis Rourke in this game. They sacked him about 6-7 times in this ball game. The offensive line for Indiana could not hold up against that Ohio State Buckeye defensive line. That was a very big positive circle moment. They dominated the line of scrimmage in this game, defensive line and offensive line. They got to Curtis Rourke a lot. If you want to look at that positive circle moment, the line of scrimmage battle was a very positive circle moment for this Ohio State team. They looked really, really good in that regard. They looked really, really good. I think that in this ball game, they looked physical. They looked strong. They looked like they were outmatching Indiana, and that's okay. It shows that Indiana, like Army, kind of hasn't played a whole lot of people, and that's fine. The debate was, and now we're going to get into that, is the debate is with Indiana, could they get into the playoffs? that is what I want to talk about here in a little bit with Indiana, but let's talk about Will Howard. 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, 22 for 26, very efficient. Trevion Henderson, 68 yards, 9 carries, and a touchdown. Quinshon Judkins, 14 carries, 36 yards. Jeremiah Smith had a 12-yard run. Will Howard had a rushing touchdown, so 3 total touchdowns for Will Howard. Amike Abuka, 80 yards, 7 receptions, and a touchdown. 11 yards per reception, 17 yards per reception for Carnell Tate, 68 yards, 4 receptions. Jeremiah Smith, 34 yards, 3 receptions with 11 yards each reception. So they look good defensively. They were sacking him. They had, as far as I know, 4.5, 5 sacks in this ball game to Curtis O'Rourke. They look physical. And I keep saying they look physical, but they did. They really did. The positive circle moments were there. They beat them in every statistical category. Honestly, it wasn't close. I mean, 316 yards compared to their 151 yards. Passing was 201 compared to their 68. 115 rushing compared to their 83. 5.7 yards per play compared to their 2.6 yards per play. Those are the positive circle moments. They had 1 interception, and that was really it. But other than that, they had 1 interception, and the penalties, which I'll get to in a minute, and the third downs. Other than that, that's it. They were efficient on 4th down. They got down the field when needed be, and they won the line of scrimmage battle on both. So those are the positive circle moments for Ohio State's team. 4 for 11 is a negative circle moment. They didn't do really good and efficient on 3rd down. They threw that pick, and they had 8 penalties for 58 yards. So they got to clean those up, especially in the playoffs and in the Big Ten championship game if they clinch it, which I think they will Saturday against Michigan. I mean, what can you say other than they dominated this game and they look like a team that's ready to rematch Oregon in the Big Ten title game and to go to the college football playoff? So, I mean, what do you say? I mean, what do you say, right? I mean, or Ohio State dominated the whole game. I mean, pretty much. I mean, if you want to look at the scorecard, we can look at the scorecard. Indiana was up in the first quarter 7-0. Ohio State was up 14-7, 14-7 in the second quarter, and then at halftime it was 14-7. It went downhill from there. Another 14 out of that, so it was 28-7, and then it was 10 more points, and it was 28 to 38 in the fourth quarter. They went from 28 to 38 points in the fourth quarter, and then they got 8 points, and then they got 15. That's pretty much it. They went for 2, and they got it late, and that was it. Ohio State dominated the whole game ever since the second quarter. They had 1 good quarter. Ohio State dominated the rest of the game. So, final score, 38-15. Ohio State plays Michigan Saturday on Big Noon kickoff at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. They play in the shoe, the game. Sharon Moore's already beaten Ryan Day once. This is a huge game for Ryan Day. They cannot lose this game. Sure can't. They cannot lose this game because they're going to start going. They're going to get the pitchforks and the torches if Michigan finds a way to upset this team Saturday, because it has not been Michigan's year. And if they do, it's going to look really, really bad, because if Penn State wins out and Ohio State loses their second game, Penn State clinches a spot in the Big Ten championship, and Ohio State is at home, and it's going to look bad for their playoff hopes as well. So they got to win. They really, really have to win to rematch Oregon in this game. Final score, 38-15. Ohio State routs Indiana. Let's see what happens in the game, because it's always going to be fun and exciting. I can't wait to watch it and can't keep up with everything. Quickly, let's go with Indiana, and then we'll go to our honorable mention and before we go to our other topics here. Quickly recapping these games, man. But Indiana, there's really a whole lot, nothing to say other than they lost. They got dominated from second quarter to the end of the game. 68 yards, 8 for 18 for Curtis O'Rourke. Tyson Lawton, 15 carries, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ellison had 62 yards, 17 carries. Curtis O'Rourke couldn't run the ball a whole lot. Surratt had 40 yards, 3 receptions. Price had 13-yard reception. And then, I mean, Walker played really, really good on defense, 8 tackles and an interception, and that was pretty much it. They tackled really good on defense, and they played really, really physical on defense for the time being, up at first in the first quarter. But throughout the rest of the game, Ohio State just kept going and going and going, and the talent level is just not there yet. Kirk Cinetti can recruit. He can recruit. It's just the talent level is not there yet up to par with Ohio State's. That's okay. It's just how it is. And they haven't really played a whole lot of people. Those are some positive circle moments. I think the defense played stellar in some areas. That was really the only positive circle moment I could give them. The rest is, really, I'm sorry. I can give some more positive circle moments. 3 penalties for 15 yards. That's not bad at all. They only had 1 turnover. That's not bad. That's not good, but not bad. They beat them in third down efficiency, 6 for 14. They look good on third down efficiency. Those are some positive circle moments, but other than that, the rest was just domination. 83 total rushing yards, 68 passing yards, 2.6 yards per play. They didn't look good in those areas. They couldn't really find a groove on both sides of the ball on offense, and Ohio State just pretty much ramsacked them the whole game. That's how it is. They haven't played a whole lot of competition up to this point, and I'm not trying to hate on Kirk Cignetti's team. I like Kirk Cignetti in Indiana. I am high on them, and I was hoping that I was going to get to cover this game, which I did. I did not like the result. Indiana showed me right there, because this was a test. This was a test as if they can win out in the playoffs. And it showed that if they go into the playoffs, I think they're going to lose. I hate to say it, and a lot of the Indiana Hoocher fans are listening to this podcast right now and saying, this guy's hating on Indiana. I'm not. In the debate right now, does Indiana have a playoff spot? Even though they're a one-loss team and they lost to Ohio State in a dominating fashion. I think body of work shows that it was an easy schedule, but not only that, it's still hard to win. If they win out, they're 10-1, right? They beat Purdue and they're 11-1. Body of work shows that it's still hard to win 11 football games and lose one of them. Yeah, they deserve to be in it. I think they deserve to be in the 12-team playoff. Do I think they're going to win? Probably not. I think Notre Dame can beat Indiana right now. Hands down, I really do. I think they should be in one of those at-large spots. I think they should be at a lower at-large spot, like a 10 or a 9 maybe an 11. But they're still a team that they've won. They're a 10-win team. They beat Purdue. That's 11 wins. Despite the schedule being easy, besides Ohio State, it's still hard to win 11 games and lose one of those games. That's pretty good. I would still keep them in that large spot. That's my agreement. Now, a lot of reporters say that they shouldn't be in. That's fine. That's fine. That's your opinion. That's your thoughts. My opinion is it's still hard to win 11 games. Despite the schedule, even though it's easy, it's still hard to win 11 games. So, granted, they tried to show up in the first quarter. They just got outplayed and outclassed by a team that had more talent. Final score, 38, Indiana 15. Ohio State defeats Indiana. Indiana has Purdue coming up this Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, at home, Indiana, home game for them. Let's see if they can rebound against Purdue, and let's see if Ohio State can finally get a win after a 3-year losing stretch against Michigan in the game Saturday afternoon. Okay. Those are the 4 games. That was the Week 13 recap for Pigskin Frenzy for college football. But let's talk about one game really quick, honorable mention game, before we go to this commitment and recruiting talk. There's been a lot of upsets in college football, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of upsets. And like Texas A&M defeating Auburn, that's not going to really affect A&M as much as it just gets into a momentum shift for Auburn as they get a good recruiting class going and try to hit up the portal and get the portal class going on December 9th. I'm just saying, y'all. I'm just saying. That window will close soon, guys. The portal opens up soon, the day after the playoff field is announced. But let me tell you about something that I didn't see coming. That was in Norman, Oklahoma. Alabama, OU. I thought that game was going to be a challenge at first, but Alabama was going to run away with it. They were going to run away with it. They were going to outshine OU in the later part of the game, and Alabama was going to win and be on their way to the SEC championship. Tell me why I was looking at this game and I was looking, oh man, Alabama's win. They got 3 points, and it was the end of the first quarter, 3-0. And then OU scored 10. It was 10-0. And then in the third quarter, Oklahoma scored 14 to their nothing. And then in the fourth quarter, it ended up being 24-3, and that was the final score. Final score of this game was Oklahoma 24, Alabama 3. This was the lowest. The lowest. Right? The lowest that Alabama has, scored in a game like this since 2003, 20 years ago. This is the highest amount of losses they've had in SEC or in regular season play since 2010. That was 14 years ago. 14 years ago. Crazy, right? Crazy. I was a little boy when that happened. Crazy. Oklahoma dominated this game from start to finish. They ran the ball all over Alabama, and all over Alabama and twice on Sunday. They were all over this team. Alabama was not ready to play this ball game, and it might have cost them, and it might have, most likely have cost them a college football playoff spot for this season. Everything blew up Saturday, guys. It really did. And let's talk about this game for a little bit before we move on quickly. Jackson Arnold has 68 yards passing, 9 for 11 on the ground. Brent Venables was watching film and was thinking, you know what? I see some holes there in that rushing defense. Let's run the ball on them, quarterback and running back wise, and let's see what happens. Jackson Arnold, 25 carries for 131 yards on the ground. They just ran the ball like it was nobody's business. Xavier Robinson, 15 carries, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sharp, 21 yards, 2 receptions, and the defense looked really, really good. They had 3 interceptions in this ball game. I think it was, as far as I know, it was 3 interceptions thrown in this ball game. And it looks like I can't find the third one. But anyway, 3 interceptions in this ball game. One of them was a pick 6. Or I think 2 of them, as far as I remember, one of them was a pick 6 from Jalen Milroe. This defense was physical on both sides of the ball on the line of scrimmage. And they were running the ball all over Alabama's defense, and they could not stop it. Pulling the words of Nick Saban here right out of my mouth. Positive circle moment. The running game. 257 yards compared to Alabama's 70 yards. The running game was a positive circle moment, and then slowing Milroe down to 0 rushing yards was a positive circle moment in this game, and holding this team to 70 rushing yards in this ball game. Alabama had 164 passing compared to their 68. 5.2 yards per play was a positive circle moment. They outgained them total yards, 325 to their 234. They were efficient on third down, 7 for 15. Very efficient on 100% perfect on fourth down. 4 penalties, 20 yards was a blemish. Not the best, but not a lot of negative circle moments for this Oklahoma team in this game Saturday night in Norman. They looked good. They dominated them on both sides of the ball. They were more physical. They were exciting to watch. They were running the ball all over this defense, and Alabama could not stop it. 257 yards on the ground. Unbelievable. And it cost Alabama a spot in the playoff most likely. Oklahoma's got LSU Saturday, and they're looking at LSU because they're looking at what Alabama did to LSU and looking at what that game and watching that game and thinking, oh, we'd stopped the team that ran all over LSU and Jalen Milroe and held him to 0 yards. What are we going to do to LSU? LSU is a touchdown favorite against Oklahoma Saturday night in Death Valley. That's a 7 Eastern kick, 6 Central on ESPN. Oklahoma at LSU, both unranked. But here's the deal. OU's bowl eligible, LSU's bowl eligible. They're both bowl eligible, so it's not going to affect anything other than that they could both be 75. This could be this could be their third conference win for OU. OU could have a third conference win on the season, and this could get some momentum entering a bowl game for Oklahoma if they could be able to run the ball. And LSU has had trouble stopping quarterback runs and having trouble stopping the run in general. So if I'm LSU, I'm watching. And speaking, I want to go to LSU here in a little bit, but if I'm LSU, I'm watching this game and I'm figuring out some packages quickly to stop this, to slow it down. Starting yesterday, hopefully, and throughout the rest of the week, I am watching film and watching what OU did to Alabama because y'all couldn't stop Alabama at all, and they did. I'm watching what they do. OU, after this win for LSU, has turned into a game that's pretty exciting, but also on high alert. The red lights are going off all over the place for LSU. So watch out for that game this Saturday night. Let's talk about Alabama as they get ready for the Iron Bowl this week. 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central kick on ABC Saturday afternoon. The Iron Bowl. Alabama was not ready and prepared for this game. They've done this twice. They did it against Vandy, and now they've done it here. Did they lose to Tennessee? Yes, but Tennessee was more of an inferior team. I'm talking about a team where they didn't have the better talent, right? They were so focused and on a winning streak that their heads weren't in it, and Alabama's heads weren't in it in this game. I mean, there's not a lot of positive circle moments to look at. They couldn't really get anything going on all sides of the ball. 3 turnovers. They snagged three interceptions for Oklahoma's defense. They got a turnover in general, but 3 turnovers in this ball game. They lose Deontay Lawson for the rest of the year due to a leg injury. Tough break for Deontay Lawson. Thoughts and prayers are with Lawson, and hopefully he makes a speedy recovery as he gets ready for the NFL draft, most likely. 7 for 14, that's a good positive circle moment. They had 4.1 yards per play. They were 0% on fourth down, 70 rushing yards, 164 passing yards. They were out physical in this game. They got to Jalen Milroe. They got in his head. They held him to 0 rushing yards. They took away his ability to run, and that is what Alabama does best, running with Jalen Milroe, and they took that ability away. Immediate recipe for disaster in this. They only scored a field goal. Oklahoma dominated the whole way through. What does this mean for Alabama as they get ready for the Iron Bowl and as they get ready for the college, hopefully maybe a college football playoff berth? Well, it hits them. And it's just like Ole Miss. They're going to rely on help. They need help. Potentially another Tennessee loss to Vanderbilt Saturday and against Vandy, Saturday afternoon against Vanderbilt in Nashville. They're going to need that big time for them to get in, because they are on the outside looking in just like Ole Miss is now. And it was crazy because in a week I had them in my top 10 in the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're really on the outside looking in now. This potentially eliminated Alabama from the playoff. Do I think Alabama is going to be fine under Kalen DeBoer? I do. I think they got a solid recruiting class. They're going to have a good transfer portal class coming in as well. I think this team's going to be fine with Kalen DeBoer's leadership. Just give it time. It's his first season. I think Alabama is 8-3. They still have a 10-win season ahead of them. They can beat, unless they lose to Auburn, then it's going to be the first season without double-digit wins since 2007, since Nick Saban's first year, which is a long time ago. That's about 17 years ago. But I think right now, that in this game and in this moment, just reflect on the season. It's not been a playoff season like you've hoped, but you can still take some positives away from this, that Kalen DeBoer does some good things, right? He needs to clean up one big thing, and that is when you're on a winning streak, you're on a high, do not overlook those games where, oh, we got this. You sure about that? Because and anything can happen in college football on any given Saturday. And with those moments, those creep up on you. So you got to get your teams ready to when you're playing a team that's that's most likely not better than you roster wise and not better than you this season. You always have them ready to play. You have to be ready to play each and every Saturday in this league, especially in the SEC. If not, you're going to lose, and you're going to lose a game you didn't expect. Alabama lost a game they did not expect at the wrong time, and they shouldn't have lost this game. 24-3, Oklahoma defeats Alabama. Alabama's playoff hopes have taken a hit. And Oklahoma, let's see if they can continue that running momentum into LSU in Baton Rouge. LSU's on upset alert Saturday. I'm just going to point that out there going into this week. We're not covering that game, but we are covering the Iron Bowl, so let's get ready for that here in a little bit. That was the Week 13 recap. Let's talk about some recruiting news really quick before we get involved, and before we get involved with everything, and let's talk about that, and let's talk about before we get to the frenzy rankings, and before we get to the preview and predictions for Showdown Saturday coming up, Week 14 rivalry weekend and the last weekend of the regular season. Tear rolling down my face as it has been. We blink and it's already here. So let's talk about this game really quick, and this recruiting news, and let's discuss everything. So news out of LSU and Michigan. LSU had the number one recruit in college football in Bryce Underwood, class of 2025 quarterback prospect out of Michigan and out of Bellevue High School in Michigan. So hometown kid, hometown state. Michigan, there was rumors a few weeks back that Michigan was going to offer him and like a Godfather style package. If you haven't seen The Godfather, he says, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, right? He's going to make him an offer he couldn't refuse. So he made him an offer. They were going to throw an offer out for an NIL package they couldn't refuse. And, well, lo and behold, Bryce Underwood flips. And LSU, and this is where I'm going to go in on LSU here in a little bit. LSU had him committed. They got a little too comfortable with the NIL package and what's been going on down there. LSU's been on a losing skid, even though they beat Vanderbilt this past Saturday. They still got two big five-star caliber players coming in. They're going to have, and the recruiting has been good going into 2025 for LSU, even though they lost to Corian Moore. They still have Harlem Berry still recruited and committed to LSU in early signing day, which early signing day is next week. So December 4th to December 6th is early signing period. So we'll talk a little bit about that in the upcoming weeks for Pigskin Frenzy recruiting, but in recruiting and early signing period and recruiting, especially in February. So we're going to talk about that here soon. But we had that. They had that. Everything was going good for LSU. And then all of a sudden, they got a little bit too comfortable with Bryce Underwood being committed. They offered him a style package, a $1 million NIL package to play at LSU. They got a little too comfortable, and then they offered him a package he couldn't refuse. He took the NIL package, he took the money, and he took the players' coach mentality of Sharon Moore, that Sharon Moore was going to rebuild Michigan, and Michigan was going to get right back into the fold, and they were going to get talent, and they were going to combat what Oregon and Ohio State and Penn State were doing in the Big Ten and go off next year to be competitive and to try to get back into the Big Ten title hunt and college football playoff title hunt, even though they just won the defending national champion, the national championship in 2023. Bryce Underwood flipped. He decommitted from LSU and committed to Michigan. So Michigan has the number one recruit in college football now. So that's the story. That's the big thing. My thoughts on it, because everyone was asking my thoughts on it. It helps Michigan. And Michigan is on the verge of trying to flip another LSU commit in Derek Meadows, who is committed there. They're on the verge of trying to flip him. And I think a lot of people are trying to flip LSU's commits right now. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but they're trying to flip him. They're going after Georgia's guys. They're going after a lot of guys. They're trying to flip a lot of recruits. They have flipped a lot of recruits already, including Bryce Underwood. They're already signing more 5 stars and talents around him in Michigan on the early signing recruiting trail, on the high school recruiting trail for February. And their transfer portal class as well is looking is going to try to look solid for the transfer portal class when they open up on December 9th. So they're already on the trail for both. And I'm going to tell you what, man, their class is looking solid. They are working hard with NIL, using the portal. A lot of people are going to say this is buying, not developing in the modern day of age. And this is why I don't like this. Yes, it's bought, not developed. But here's the deal. They get the players with NIL packaging. They get them. They recruit them. They sell them on their program. They get the NIL packaging, and they share it with them. But here's the problem. Here's the deal. They develop them when they commit to them, okay? When they sign their intent, and they sign their scholarship letter, and they sign their signing papers. They get in there, and they develop them that way throughout the next 3 to 4 years. That's what they do. NIL is a part of recruiting now. It is illegal to give players a money package to go play for them. It is legal. It is a part of the recruiting system now. Yes, you got to learn how to regulate it. We need more rules to regulate that. I know, and I'm in total agreement with that, but it's a part of the regulations. Nothing that they did wrong was wrong to try to flip Bryce Underwood, to get him to stay in his home state of Michigan. There is nothing wrong with getting him to stay as a part of the Big Ten, because Michigan is going to be a problem next year with their freshman class. They're going to be talented, and they're going to start Bryce Underwood at quarterback. They're going to have everybody back, a lot of people back. Khalil Mullins could come back, and they're going to have a lot of guys at receiver and a lot of guys up front on both sides of the ball, defensive line and offensive line, around Bryce Underwood, and they're going to build around him. And the recruiting is going to be off the charts for Sherrone Moore. So what Sherrone Moore is doing after his first season as a player's coach and as a hard-working coach, he's learned from Jim Harbaugh, and he's going out and executing. He's an execution coach, and he is doing everything to rip the hearts out of teams, and he is doing that. He is doing well at Michigan so far. Michigan's season on the field didn't turn out the way it's hoped, but so far on the recruiting trail, Sherrone Moore has kind of done something up there and is building a team up there for next year. So watch out for Michigan. Michigan may be taking an off year this year, but they're going to be right back in the thick of things for probably years to come here shortly, coming up soon for the Wolverines. What does this mean for LSU? Well, they lost the number one player in the country. Joe Salone's job depended on this, because Joe Salone had a strong relationship with Bryce Underwood. Now that he's not there, LSU could be in the market for an offensive coordinator. LSU could also lose a bunch of recruits after this. LSU still has some recruits that they are committing. They just got 4-star linebacker Zach Weeks, the brother of Witt and West Weeks at LSU. They got their younger brother to come play for LSU. He's going to reclassify for this class and come sign with them soon. So he will be he will be a part of the team on the 2025 season. 2025 season, I've already said that this was a make it or break year for Brian Kelly, and Brian Kelly needs to execute in the recruiting trail. They were the number 6 class. I don't know where they're going to be at now after some commits are going to be probably decommit and flip to other teams. They are going to have to use that. They're going to have to use NIL more, and they're going to have to use the transfer portal like it depends, like Brian Kelly's job depends on it, because it does. Pin drop, because it does. This season was not the way people planned and panned it out. If they don't use the NIL packages, they do not they do not try to flip guys, they do not try to recruit guys high school wise, and they have a good high school recruiting class, which is pretty good. Besides Bryce Underwood, that's a big blow in their recruiting class, because they were leading him. If they can get some guys to not flip, and they can go to the transfer portal and get some guys and go heavy on the transfer portal during the offseason, then LSU will be fine going into 2025, maybe. But if they do not do that, it's going to be a long 2025 season next year, and Brian Kelly's in trouble. I'm just going to be honest. They have to do this, because this hurt LSU. Offensive coordinator change, I think they need to use the portal. I think LSU needs to use NIL, because they are like Clemson in the ACC. They're not using that stuff as much. They need to use that, and they need to keep the high school recruits that they got now on board and try to get them to buy into their program. They have to use those packages, because if they do not, everybody's going to stomp them and run over them. That's how I look at it. Recruiting is a dangerous game. It's a hard game to do it. But Brian Kelly, with his track record, can do that. He's just not utilizing the resources of now, and he needs to do that. Because if not, it's going to be a long off-season and a long season for 2025 potentially for Brian Kelly and LSU. So that's the recruiting news. Those are my thoughts on the Michigan flipping commit for Bryce Underwood and the recruiting news for LSU and Michigan here right now. So I just wanted to touch on that. Let's go to the Frenzy rankings, and then we'll go to the preview predictions for this coming up. Showdown Saturday 2 this weekend, rivalry weekend, week 14, the last weekend of the regular season. Let's talk about this, because I think it's pretty interesting, honestly. Frenzy College Football Playoff Rankings Week 14 goes like this, because it has a major shakeup. Number 25, Army. Army is 25. Syracuse is out. Syracuse, it was good while it lasted. Made a mistake on that. Syracuse played well, but not enough to say in my rankings. Army is 25 after that tough loss against Notre Dame. 24 in the Frenzy playoff rankings for our Frenzy rankings is Missouri. Missouri beat State. They're a 3-loss team. They look good against State. They get the nod at number 24. Number 23, after a huge loss to Kansas, is Colorado. Colorado is 23, and they dropped that spot after losing to Kansas. Huge upset there. Huge upset loss there for Colorado. Number 22, Illinois. Illinois is still going, man. Still fighting. Winning these games. 3-loss team. Illinois is looking good. Looking like they're on their way back to a Elia Quest Bowl or a Citrus Bowl or a Music City Bowl even for Illinois. So number 22, Illinois. Number 21, and keep an eye on a 2-loss UNLV team. So if anything plays out the way it does, Army loses to Tulane, and if UNLV goes out and blows out Boise State, UNLV could be that Group of 5 team that slips into the college ball playoff, and Barry Odom could be on track to surprise a lot of people. So UNLV, number 21, 2-loss UNLV team at 21 right there. Above them, another Group of 5, John Summerall and Tulane at 20. 2-loss Tulane have a tough game coming up. Have a tough thing going on against Army. Conference Championship, American Conference Championship next Friday night on ABC. Tulane and Army next Friday. Tulane is at 20. 19 is Iowa State, coming off of a huge win this past weekend against Utah. Almost lost that one, but they pulled it out. Close. 19 is Utah. Still a 2-loss team is Iowa State. Number 18 is BYU after losing to Arizona State. 2-loss BYU goes to 18 after losing to them. Texas A&M drops from 14 to 17 in our rankings after losing to Auburn. So 17 is Texas A&M. 16 is South Carolina. I put South Carolina ahead of them because they beat Texas A&M, and they're a 3-loss team. South Carolina is number 16 in my rankings. I am high on South Carolina, and we are covering the Clemson and South Carolina game coming up this weekend. Number 15 is Ole Miss after losing to Florida. They are down from 7 to 15. They dropped 8 spots in the Frenzy rankings this week, and they are number 15. Number 14, the second team out, is Alabama at 14. The second team out is Alabama after dropping that game to Oklahoma. I do not really see them right now, a good path for them to get to the playoffs over a lot of others right now. So number 14 is Alabama, first team out. Number 13 is Clemson. Clemson is 13 in my rankings. I got them there. And I think they're looking good right now. Let's see how they do against South Carolina. SMU has already got one of the spots. Miami's got to lose another game, and Clemson will be in. But they are rooting for Miami this weekend. SMU is already in the ACC championship. Winner plays SMU, so they are banking on a Miami loss in this one. So Clemson is at 13. Boise State's at 12 after beating Wyoming. They are still at 12. I still have them there, and they are in the playoffs there. Number 11 is Indiana. They could be an 11-1 team. Indiana's at 11. I got them there. I still have them in it because I think it's hard, like I said, to win 11 games and lose one. They've won 10 games, hard to do. Lost one out of those 10 games, right? So come on, man. Come on. I mean, Indiana is 11. Arizona State's number 10. I put Arizona State at 10. I think they are a solid football team, a dangerous football team, and I think they're at the head of the pack in the Big 12 right now. So give me Arizona State at number 10. Number 9, Tennessee, right back in it. Number 9 is Tennessee. Strong performance against UTEP. They have to play Vandy, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central on ABC, or on SEC Network, as far as I know. They have to play Vanderbilt in Nashville. Number 9 is Tennessee. Let's see if they can win out and try to get in to the playoffs as a 2-loss SEC team. Number 8 is SMU. 1-loss SMU. They are in the ACC championship game. They can have a bye, maybe. So let's see what SMU does and how they look going into this game, to finish out their season. They're already in the ACC championship. So let's see how SMU looks. And number 8 is SMU. Number 7 is Miami. Miami is back in it. They looked good against Wake Forest. Miami is number 7. They're on tap to play SMU if they can win this weekend against Syracuse, and they can go and clinch a spot in the ACC championship game and play SMU. So number 8, SMU. Number 7, Miami. Number 6 is Georgia. Looked really, really good against UMass. Let's see how they look against Georgia Tech Friday night on ABC on Black Friday. Georgia is number 6. They have clinched a spot in the SEC championship after the Ole Miss and Alabama losses. They are in. They will play the winner of the Texas and Texas A&M game in the SEC championship game next Saturday on December 8th. So Georgia is going to Atlanta. They are in. They are at number 6 on my rankings right now. Number 5 is Penn State. Penn State, one-loss team. They barely scraped by to Minnesota. I was debating on flip-flopping between Georgia and Penn State. Georgia going at number 5 and Penn State going at number 6, and I might do that next week. But right now, Penn State remains at 5. They hang on and beat Minnesota. Let's see what they do, and if they can root for Ohio State to root for Michigan to beat Ohio State to clinch a spot in the Big Ten championship. So number 5 is Penn State. They look like a team that will be in an at-large spot in the college football playoff. Number 4. Notre Dame. I got Notre Dame at 4. I bumped them up after the way they played against Army. Bumped them up all the way to number 4. I think Notre Dame's playing consistent ball. Probably up to par with what Oregon is doing consistently. I think they have been playing lights out, and they're at number 4 right now. So Notre Dame is at 4 in my rankings right now. Number 3 is Texas. After a good win against Kentucky, they play the winner. They play Texas A&M for a spot in the SEC championship against Georgia this Saturday night. So we're going to cover that game. I'm excited about that game. Let's see how that pans out this Saturday night. So Texas is at 3. Number 2, Ohio State is at 2 after defeating Indiana this past Saturday. And number 1 is Oregon. Number 1 is Oregon after having a bye week. They play Washington Saturday night on NBC. So that is the Frenzy College Football Playoff rankings for Week 14 for Pigskin Frenzy. Our rankings, we will release them tomorrow on X and Instagram, which is Wednesday. So check on the pages, Pigskin_Frenzy on both X and Instagram. Follow, like the pages, and you will see the full set of rankings released tomorrow, which is Wednesday. That's the Frenzy College Football Playoff rankings for Week 14. Let's go with our Showdown Saturday preview and predictions, our Week 14 preview and predictions, and the games that we are covering for this weekend. Let's kick it off with a Black Friday game. We're covering 1 Black Friday and 3 Saturday games here. Week 14 Showdown Saturday preview and predictions right here on Pigskin Frenzy. Georgia Tech at Georgia. Interesting game that we're covering here, but we're going to do it. Huge game here. Georgia Tech 7-4, still coming off of a momentum shift. They beat Miami. They beat NC State, coming off a huge momentum. Can they keep it up by going to Athens to upset Georgia in Sanford Stadium this Friday night? 7-4. Can Georgia keep up their momentum and end the season with a 10-win season as they head towards the SEC championship the next week? Georgia Tech's keys are simple. Number 1, force turnovers. Carson Beck leads the SEC in turnovers as a quarterback. If you can turn the ball over enough times, you can pull off the upset in a hostile Sanford Stadium crowd in Athens. So that's going to be tough there, but force turnovers against Carson Beck in this Bulldog team. Number 2, you got to match their physicality. If you can find a way to match their physicality on the line of scrimmage, pressure them a little bit and be physical with them, you can find a way to win this game, and you can create some explosive plays on this Georgia defense as well. So match your physicality. You have seen it done with Ole Miss. Take the Ole Miss approach and do that. If you can do that, then you should be fine in this ball game. Number 3, establish the running game. Georgia Tech is currently 45th in rushing offense in college football right now. However, the caveat to that is Georgia is currently 26th in rushing defense in college football. If you can match your physicality and run the ball at an efficient rate against this defense, you might have their defense on its heels, and you can find a way to pull out an upset win in Athens Friday night on Black Friday. So that could be an interesting game there for Georgia Tech. So Georgia Tech's keys are pretty simple there. Here are Georgia's keys in this one. Number 1, protect the football. Carson Beck has been doing good at protecting the football the past couple of weeks against Tennessee and UMass. Do that. Don't do what you did against Ole Miss, Florida, and Texas. You protect the football. No fumbles, no picks. Protect the football, and you should be fine in this game. Number 2, establish the running game. Georgia is currently 103rd in rushing offense in college football. Georgia Tech has the defense to slow that down. 36 in rushing defense in college football currently right now. So if you can find a way to run the ball on this defense and do it at an effective rate, you should be fine in this game with Nate Frazier, with Trevor Etienne if he's playing, with Roger Robinson, Branson Robinson. If you can do it, you can try to find a way to get the job done. And number 3, win the line of scrimmage battle. If you can win the line of scrimmage battle, be physical and out physical them, this game should be over. And Georgia should win this ball game. So those are both keys for both teams. Who do I got winning this ball game? I think Georgia Tech is going to be a team that you don't need to sleep on. I think just because they clinched a spot in Atlanta doesn't mean that their playoff hopes cannot, well, not exactly. If they win if they could be a 3-loss SEC champion and get into the college football playoff. But if they win this game, if they lose this game and then lose the SEC championship, it's going to hurt them pretty bad. I would not look past Georgia Tech. They're going to be a team that's going to come out fighting, going to come out strong. I think they're going to come out looking good at first in this game. I think that they're not going to let up. It's going to be a dogfight until about the third or maybe even fourth quarter. I think Georgia will pull out a win and squeak by with a win, but it's going to be a close game for Georgia Tech and a close game for Georgia. Georgia wins the game 28-24. Georgia 28, Georgia Tech 24. They're going to give us a scare, I think. I think Georgia wins the game, though, 28-24. Georgia goes to 10-2. Georgia Tech goes to 7-5. Georgia defeats Georgia Tech in Athens and goes to the SEC championship with a big win and a wave of momentum after Showdown Saturday. Georgia gets the win over Georgia Tech. The Palmetto Bowl. South Carolina at Clemson. I have been waiting to cover this game. South Carolina is 8-3. Clemson is 9-2. Both solid football teams in Clemson's Death Valley, Clemson Memorial Stadium, Howard's Rock, the Palmetto Bowl in South Carolina. South Carolina is a solid football team. They've been playing lights out, a wave of momentum going into this one. They just beat down Wofford. Clemson just beat down the Citadel. They both have a high wave of momentum. Clemson is looking for an ACC championship berth if they can, if they can root for Miami to lose. Clemson is looking to keep their playoff hopes alive. South Carolina is looking to play spoiler in this one. Huge game coming up at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central on ESPN. Huge game coming up. Here is what we got. South Carolina's keys are pretty simple. Number 1, establish the running game. South Carolina currently is 52nd in rushing offense in college football. Clemson is currently 42nd in rushing defense in college football. So if they can, it's pretty even. If Lenore Sellers can run the ball and Raheem Rocket Sanders can run the ball at an efficient rate, and Clemson, and you can wear out that defense, you have a shot at winning this game. And I think that South Carolina can prevail if they can do that. They are a strong running team. They can run the ball option-wise, and they are pretty good at it. So if they can do that, they can find a way to win. Number 2, pressure Cade Klubnik. They have the best defensive line in the SEC, probably one of the best in college football at defensive lines. They have one of the best defensive linemen, defensive edges and defensive linemen. And Kyle Brashard in college football. Brashard in college football. He is stingy, he is nasty. This South Carolina defensive line is ferocious, and they can pressure and sack Cade Klubnik and get to him. So they can pressure him, force him to make some mistakes, sack him maybe. They have a shot at winning this ball game. Number 3, win the line of scrimmage battle. This goes hand in hand. If you can win the line of scrimmage battle, out-physical them on both sides of the ball, you have a shot at winning this ball game. South Carolina's a true threat to Clemson this season, I think. And I think if they're physical enough, they can do it this Saturday afternoon. Those are South Carolina's keys. Clemson's keys are simple. Number 1, win the line of scrimmage battle. Out-physical them, out-match them up front. If you can do that, you have a shot at winning this ball game and going to 10 wins on the year. Number 2, slow down their running game. If you can find a way to slow down their running game with Rocket Sanders, with Lenore Sellers, I think Clemson's got a shot at winning this. If they can do it, they have to slow the running game down. And number 3, force turnovers. Lenore Sellers is not shy at throwing the ball to the other team. This defense snagged two turnovers versus the Citadel last week. If you can try to do that against South Carolina and capitalize off those turnovers, then Clemson should be fine in this game. He's no stranger of turning the ball over, and if Clemson can find a way to force that, they should be fine in this game. That was Clemson's keys. That was South Carolina's keys just a minute ago. Who do I got winning this ball game? I think it's going to be close. I really do. I think this game will be close. It's going to be back and forth. I think Clemson will put up a fight late up into the later part of the game. I just think that South Carolina right now is too tough right now. And if it came down to a line of scrimmage battle, I think South Carolina wins that. And I think they're more physical right now than Clemson is. Give me South Carolina to go on the road and beat Clemson to go 9-3. South Carolina wins 28-21. South Carolina 28, Clemson 21. Clemson goes to 9-3. South Carolina goes to 9-3. And they play spoiler in this, and they end Clemson's college football playoff hopes precisely, maybe. South Carolina 28, Clemson 21. South Carolina defeats Clemson and wins the Palmetto Bowl. The Iron Bowl. Auburn at Alabama. 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central kick. SEC on ABC. Something's got to give here. Auburn at Alabama. Auburn's 5-6. Alabama's at 8-3. Alabama's looking to, shake off that loss to Oklahoma. Auburn is looking to keep up their wave of momentum by doing another upset back-to-back weeks after upsetting Texas A&M and trying to upset Alabama in the Iron Bowl and to go bowl eligible if they can upset Alabama. So big things on the line here. Could for sure knock Alabama out of the playoffs. Auburn's bowl eligibility is at stake right now. Something's got to give in Tuscaloosa. Let's see Auburn's keys in this one. Number one, you got to slow down their running game. Bama is currently 28th in rushing offense in college football. Meanwhile, Auburn's currently 14th in rushing defense in college football. They have the defense and the antidote to try to slow down that rushing team. If they can pull what Oklahoma did, Alabama's in trouble. Alabama had a scare last year against the Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Jalen Milroe did not play his best game. Could that be the case this year? Let's see what happens this Saturday. It's going to be tough. That running game is going to be crucial in this ball game, I think. Number two, you got to force turnovers. Bama had 3 turnovers versus Oklahoma. If you can find a way to turn the ball over, that's a good shot at you guys for pulling off the upset and winning this game. So that's number two. Big key there is to force the turnovers. Just force those turnovers. Get the ball. You should be fine. Number three, establish the running game against this team. Man, I'm not going to lie. If you ran the ball really, really well against Texas A&M. If you can do that, you should be fine. You're currently 53rd in rushing offense in college football. Bama is currently 52nd in rushing defense in college football. So there are close margins here. Very, very, very close margins here. So if, and I do mean if, you can try to, establish that running game when you can, you should do it. I think that if they gave up that much, against Oklahoma, we'll see what the notes are. 70 gave up 257 yards. Alabama had 270 yards rushing total last week. Against OU. OU ran the ball for 257 yards on them. So if Auburn can do just that, or up to that standard, they can win this ball game. I'm being honest. They can win this ball game and upset Alabama and win the Iron Bowl in Tuscaloosa. It's not a possibility. Last time they won the Iron Bowl in Tuscaloosa, I think it was 2010 when Cam Newton was there. As far as I know, let me, don't get me, let's not get myself in trouble, and let's look before we go all crazy. So if they can do that, though, it should be fine, right? It should be fine. The last time, Auburn won in Tuscaloosa, was 2010 against, with Cam Newton was on the team. So they can find a way to do that. They could get their first win in Tuscaloosa in about 14 years. So Alabama's keys are pretty simple, man. Slow down their running game. They had 168 total rushing yards versus Texas A&M. You got to slow down their running game. You can't do what you did against Oklahoma last week. You can't give up that much. If you give up that much, it's going to look toward you're going to look forward towards another loss. Number 2, forced turnovers. Auburn is currently 116th in turnovers lost. That's not good. Auburn is known to turn the ball over. If you can turn the ball over against this team and get some turnovers, you have a shot at winning this ball game at home. Number 3, protect the football. I think if you can protect the football and not throw 3 turnovers and play clean ball, you should be fine in this one. That's just really it, honestly. I think if you can do those 3 things, Bama can bounce back and bounce back quite nicely. Who do I got winning this ball game? I think it's going to be close because it's the Iron Bowl. I think that Auburn's going to come out swinging at first. I think it's going to be close at first. How about this? I think it's going to be close at first. I think it's going to be close at first. I think it's going to be close up until halftime. However, I think in the second half, Alabama runs away with it and gets the win. I think it's Kalen DeBoer's first Iron Bowl. He's not going to want to lose his first Iron Bowl. It's going to be, a motivating thing for him. He's going to try to outcoach Hugh Freeze. Give me Alabama to run away with it in the second half. I think they're going to beat Auburn by a score of 31-17. Alabama 31, Auburn 17. Auburn goes to 5-7 and misses their bowl eligibility. Alabama goes to 9-3 and looks forward to a 10-win season after this Iron Bowl win. So Alabama 31, Auburn 17. Alabama wins the Iron Bowl in Tuscaloosa this weekend. Last but not least, Texas at Texas A&M, a rivalry renewed here for Showdown Saturday. It doesn't get any better than this. Winner goes to play Georgia in the SEC Championship next Saturday. One more spot to be filled. Is it going to be Texas or Texas A&M? A rivalry renewed. It's at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central kick on Saturday Night Football on ABC, SEC on ABC. Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler on the call. It's going to be huge. Kyle Field, 100,000 plus sold out night game. We're going to be raucous. Big game. The biggest game of the college football weekend and rivalry weekend. Haven't played since 2011. They're renewing their rivalry. And the SEC championship spot for a spot to play Georgia in the SEC championship is on the line this Saturday. All those ingredients. It's going to be a magical game for college football. Who wants it more? That's the real question. Texas A&M, Texas keys are simple. Number 1, win the line of scrimmage. I would think to win the line of scrimmage is going to be crucial in this. They're going to be a physical team. You got to play them physical. If you win the line of scrimmage battle, you got it this weekend. Number 2, establish the running game against them. 250 total rushing yards against Kentucky. A&M gave up 168 total rushing yards versus Auburn. So if he can run the ball well, run the ball with Blue, run the ball with Wisner, if you can do that and run the ball with those 2 backs, you should be fine in this ball game. Number 3, protect the football. 2 turnovers versus Kentucky. If you can protect the football and just don't give up those 2 turnovers against Kentucky, you should be fine in this ball game. Huge keys for Texas here. I think they're going to need it. Number 1 for Texas A&M, here are the keys there. Force turnovers. If you can force those turnovers and get the ball and capitalize off those turnovers with Marcel Reed, you should be fine in this game. Number 2, win the third down battle. I think if you win the third down battle, they were 10 for 19 against Auburn on third downs. If you can win that third down battle, you should be fine in this ball game, I think. You got to win the third down battle, though. 10 for 19 against Auburn on third downs. Number 3, and last but not least, minimize those penalties. He had 7 penalties for 39 yards versus Auburn last week. You have to be better at penalties. Play disciplined football, play clean football, and you can run up on them and win. I think the huge notes in this, and this is the things to look out for, are the running game. Who runs the ball better? That's one. The line of scrimmage battle. Who's going to be more physical up front on both sides of the ball? And can Quinn Ewers go or not? Ankle-wise, can he go this Saturday? He hurt his ankle against Kentucky, has an ankle injury. Is it sprained? What is it? Can he go? And can he go in that raucous Kyle Field? It's going to depend on my pick right now, but I'm going to risk it here. Who do I got winning this ball game? I think it's going to be a close game, back and forth until the end. depending on who starts, I'm going to risk it, roll the dice. I think Texas is going to squeak by with a win on the road and get the job done. I think Texas gets the job done. I think they win. I think they squeak by with a win. It's going to be a risky pick. We don't know if Quinn Ewers is going to play or not with that ankle injury, but Texas gets the job done. They go to play Georgia in the SEC Championship. Texas wins. Texas 35, Texas A&M 28. Texas 35, A&M 28. A&M goes to 8-4. Texas goes to 11-1. They play Georgia in the SEC championship game in Atlanta next week, and A&M remains home and is out of the SEC title contention and playoff contention after this. So Texas defeats Texas A&M and goes to Atlanta to play Georgia in the SEC championship game, just like how I predicted earlier without all the craziness during this season. That's all we got with the preview and predictions for Showdown Saturday in Week 14. That's all that we got for Pigskin Frenzy. A big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, just type in Pigskin Frenzy, follow like the pages there. You're going to get episode updates, news and highlights from across college and NFL football, trivia questions on Instagram stories, go and answer today's college football question, as well as all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, website www.pigskinfrenzy.com, .weebly.com. Check out all things up to date on that website. Big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just listen to college football coverage presented by me. Guys, the holidays are coming up. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy everything. God blessed us is going to bless us with a great Thanksgiving. I'm sure of it. Wherever you're at in life, with anything, tough times can happen. But here's the one thing that remains truth: the Lord is faithful and true, and that's the one thing that I can tell you about life in general. The Lord remains faithful and true. He is good. He is great. He is the Lord of all, and He is with you, and He loves you. That is the main thing that we can get at here out of life and out of football and having fun this weekend. Enjoy this weekend slate of games for college football, rivalry weekend. We're going to be back Thursday for a Thanksgiving Frenzy edition of NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy, covering games for Week 13, recapping Week 12. We're going to have some Thanksgiving picks. We're going to do all that for Thanksgiving. We're going to have a lot of things going down. Thanksgiving edition of Pigskin Frenzy for NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy on Thursday. So, big shout out there. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Enjoy this weekend slate of games. We will be back Thursday for that. Hope you all have a great week. Have a great rest of your night. Going into the night. Until Thursday, I'm Joel Norris signing off. We will see you then. Praise the Lord and enjoy everything. As always, stay the course.